Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Georgianna.
And this is Wholehearted Loving, where we teach you simple tools to grow the muscles you need to be with big feelings and overwhelming sensations in your body.
Whether you have active challenges in your life or relationships, or whether you're just here to learn to be kinder to yourself, we pull out all the little things that make life feel better, the things that give you a sense of hope and direction.
So if you're too hard on yourself or on others,
if you want to feel real, deep connection in your life and relationships,
even if you want to reprogram your inner critic while you're sleeping,
this is a great place to be.
So welcome, and we hope this episode brings you just the tidbit you needed today.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about this magical tool of reporting your mind, both as a means to learn to receive and to connect. You can find self-reflection prompts for this episode and every episode on our Instagram at Wholehearted Loving. And you can learn more about us and how to practice with us live on our website at wholeheartedloving.com. And as always, we will start with a body-based self-connection practice to connect with ourselves before each other and this podcast.
Okay, so this one is a little bit different, I think, than what we usually do. And it involves using a little bit of imagination. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to set it up well for you to use your in-the-moment experience. But if you can't, it's a good takeaway that I think you'll be able to use at some point in day-to-day life. So I'm thinking about an experience that you might have or a body feeling that you get that sort of annoys you. It's not super comfortable. Like, so for me right now, I feel super hot because they're window washing and we got to keep all the windows closed and it's hot here today. And so my whole body feels hot and not pleasant. Another example I've had before is I don't like fans blowing in my face. It really bothers me. I don't like my hair blowing everywhere and I don't like that sensation on my face. And then another one is when I'm like carrying a bajillion bags of groceries because I don't want to make several trips. So I'm like carrying like 10 bags at once, that it feels heavy and it doesn't feel nice in my hands and things are banging against my legs, that kind of thing. So if you wanted to, you could bring to mind some kind of body experience that's like that for you. Right. Does something come to mind for you, Steph?
Yeah, I also hate that prickly hot feeling. That made me think of the feeling of being too cold when my fingers and toes are all frozen. And the feelings, the bags, I like the feeling of the one trip. I don't like the feeling of plastic shopping bags digging into my fingers.
Yes. Okay. So before we play with this on a body level, you might need to use your mind a little bit. But this is where we get in touch with that body sensation we don't love and then think with the mind or with the body going back to when have you had a similar sensation, but it's actually something pleasant. So for example, with the wind blowing, I'm like, I love when the wind blows in my hair when I'm on a boat. I love that feeling. And this one I don't love so much, but I like it, which is at the gym when I'm carrying heavy weights and we call it the farmer's walk. And you walk across the gym carrying these really two heavy weights in your hands. And I always like that feeling, that sensation of like I'm feeling strong and I'm like sturdy and I'm walking across the gym. And this practice is about noticing moments where you don't love how you're feeling inside, but maybe there's nothing you can change about that situation right in that moment. But you can change the association, the mental image that you couple up with the moment and see what happens. And so I'm sitting here feeling super hot. And I thought, there's nothing really I can change right now. I'm not going to go dig out a fan. I'm not changing my clothes. I'm not going to dunk my feet in a bucket of water. I'm just not doing that right now. So I'm going to need to live with a little bit of, I feel hot. So I thought, what if I close my eyes a little and lean back and imagine I am hot on a lounge chair by the pool or on the beach or on a blanket on the beach. Because I have felt this hot before where I have enjoyed it. Or I'm hot in the sauna. And all of a sudden, feeling hot starts to feel a little bit less yucky. And it feels a little bit more okay. And depending on the moment and the circumstance and my imagination ability of that moment, I might actually feel that it's sort of nice. And I'm just playing with that. I'm just playing with that imagery of like, oh, I'm sitting at the sauna. I love when it's hot in the sauna. And then all of a sudden things shift a little. I don't feel as like,
Mm-hmm.
and I've done that like where I've been in front of a fan, I can't change it. And I just close my eyes and imagine I feel the sensation of the fan and on my face and in my hair. And I'm like, oh, it's just like being on the boat. And it always makes me so happy. And then it's just different.
You're so proactive with such a good attitude, I must say. I think this is the kind of thing. So right off the bat, the items I chose were sensations that are actually like physically dangerous. My fingers are gonna, they'll actually fall off with both of the examples if I persisted with them. But I do have the experience you're describing when it's like the end of my rope. That's when I'll be able to produce a helpful visual.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking of how neat that is, that like all of this work we talk about is, practice when it's not urgent. And I'm learning to do that for sure. But also necessity is the mother of invention. So I remember when I lived in Ontario for a few years and I did not understand what heat was because I'm from the West Coast. And I think it was something like 39 degrees, but the feels like with humidity was 49 degrees, which Celsius, I don't know if people can picture that amount of heat. Like we were going to perish, but I had to let the dog out to pee. Like I had to move around and like function. And you would open the door and just see there was heat waves just everywhere. It was wild. And I had to pretend that I was in a steam room. Mm-hmm. Otherwise I would have not been able to function at all.
Yeah. But isn't it interesting, the power of visualization, imagination, the power of the mind?
Yeah.
Right.
With my dangerous examples, the fingers, I'm trying to think like, what would be a positive association with plastic bags cutting off the circulation in my fingers? And I realized, well, now I probably wouldn't challenge myself in this way. I'd move the bags. I'd choose different bags. I'd make things easier. But I could also turn that into some sort of like competitive game in my mind where I'm going to win $1 million if I can carry these bags 20 more feet, or maybe the bags are full of babies that I love and the ground is lava. You can't put them down.
But all of a sudden it makes that 30-second, 1 minute, 2 minute walk more pleasant. Yeah. And like there's nothing wrong with not doing this and just sort of like pushing through for that 30 seconds or 2 minutes or however long. Like I'm not talking about putting ourselves in really awful situations on purpose or not changing anything about the situation if you can. And obviously none of us are going to die from like carrying 10 bags up a flight of stairs one time. Right? But it's that I think a lot of us have the programming of orienting to what's gross about this moment. And then we make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And the point of this is realizing I don't have to feel that way if I don't want to. Yeah. Right. And if you want to and you're fine with that, it's totally fine. But I've noticed for me, when I start orienting to what feels gross about this moment, it just puts me in a funk that is not that enjoyable. It's not that helpful. That energy sort of seeps into the next things that I'm doing. And I'd rather not.
Like the big feelings and overwhelming sensations we describe, those gross feelings that you have a lot of power over, you have a lot of agency, and it creates the story that you're living in. So any optional discomfort, let's work to move that out. Let's introduce some nicer feeling thoughts or some decent feeling thoughts, and it changes the experience totally.
Yeah. So it's like bringing in a little bit of comfort to be with the discomfort of the moment. Yeah. Right. Choosing what I can orient to that just makes this thing that I can't really change a little bit more decent or a little bit less bad, a little bit more bearable. And then like what you're noting, taking note of, well, maybe I don't want to be that person that tries to take everything in one go anymore because I don't actually enjoy this feeling. And you can change things up over time. Or maybe I realize I hate the fan so much, I really should pay attention and not put myself in a part of the room right next to the fan. Right. Yeah. So this is not about ignoring what feels gross and finding all these ways to bypass it and just stick it out. But it's, hey, here's an option for in the moment. if it helps you feel better. And then take what you learned from that experience and see if you want to change up how you want to do things in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting to decide what we want to be with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how we want to show up for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one tool that you can use while you're having to endure a situation that might not feel great is narrating the experience. It adds a buffer, and it also like invites the universe to help you. The reason that I wanted to talk about this is because it's super underrated, and it's an invitation to connect. It helps you share yourself. It helps you know yourself, and it invites people. Typically people want to help,
Yes.
we might less like being asked directly for help. But
Mm-hmm.
if, you're walking down the street and you hear somebody saying, gosh, I'm thirsty, and you have a bottle of water, you might be like, hey, did you want this? But if
Mm-hmm.
nobody ever knows, then nobody can help. And the
Yeah.
universe can't provide if you're not aware yourself, admitting it to yourself in the
Yes.
same way.
I think this is a really key thing to sit with is if nobody ever knows, then they wouldn't know to help. And of course, sometimes you're hoping that people are like watching and paying attention and not wanting to watch you suffer and like just assume you don't need anything because you didn't speak up. But there's a lot of times where we keep things to ourselves. Sometimes because that's our old protective pattern to keep things to ourselves, but other times because it just never occurs to us to tell anybody or to say it out loud or share what's happening. And I remember going through Landmark years and years ago, and people have their different opinions about Landmark, and that's fine. But one thing I remember them really encouraging us to do is tell people what you're up to, like with no agenda, but just be vocal about what you're up to in your life and what's going on, what's going well, what's not going well, what are you doing? Right. And it was from this place of exactly what you said. Many people, maybe not all, but many people want to help, but they don't realize that it would be helpful or that you need help. And when you tell people what you're up to, they're like, oh, let me connect you with so and so, or I had a great idea, or like, I help you out this way? Or like, I read a great book once that may be helpful. Like, people generally want to be helpful, or at least there's going to be, like, I've talked to also people who have in their small radius of people been more unfortunate and really sort of been around people that are not so helpful, even when you're vocal about needing help. And I always encourage them to keep trying because you will run into people who want to help. Not everybody doesn't want to help, and not everybody has no capacity to help. But we do have to, when we come upon situations where it seems like it statistically, like after trying a lot, you feel like nobody wants to help you. I think you just haven't found your people yet.
Yeah.
And it was a really great lesson because I have an old protective pattern of don't tell anybody what you're up to, just handle it yourself. Recognizing that I also, by keeping it all in, am limiting my options of support and preventing people who would love to be able to help me have that opportunity to help me and gift me something.
Yeah.
Right, is unfortunate. And so talk about what's going on in your life. Share what you're up to. Share what you're excited about. Share what you're worried about. And be willing to be curious about what comes back in return.
Yeah.
Right. And this is different. I want to point this out first. This is different than the passive aggressive. Let me just say what I'm up to when I'm wanting to just plant enough seed for you to just know what you should do and do it for me. And if you don't catch on, you're a jerk. It's different. It's not the same.
Yes. And this is why I say narrate. So this came up in our women's group we were in years ago. And I recognized it was either assigned or I recognized myself, which would be quite a feat, that I needed to narrate everything, not just ask for what I needed. Because I knew I wouldn't ask for what I needed. I knew it would be weird and clunky and whatever. So I just started narrating to no one at all. I'm alone at home. I'm narrating everything I'm doing. Eventually carries over with other people in this helpful way because it isn't always help you're looking for. It might just be information. And this is an example where you can use the non-loaded stuff. We say practice when things are fine, not when things are at their peak and you're losing your mind, right? So I want to give you guys two examples that came up last week. that reinforced this for me and that are not loaded at all. And they weren't even about asking for help. But if I had been narrating, I would have solved a problem I didn't know I had, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're away at our retreaty thing that we go to. And we're both doing keto, me and Georgianna. So we've got all these special foods with us. And you brought yogurt and fruit and a bunch of things. And after dinner, you came over and you were like, do you want some yogurt? And in my mind, I thought, yes, I'd like yogurt, but I'd like things to go in the yogurt. And it can't just be raspberries. It needs to be like grainy, chocolatey something. And I don't have any of that. So I'm just saying no to the yogurt, right? And then Georgiana comes back with her yogurt and she puts raspberries in it. And then she starts cutting up this little grainy chocolatey thing that was not a typical yogurt pour over. It was like a proteiny chocolatey bar thing that she cut up and made into exactly the bits that I would have wanted, that would have made me want the yogurt. And if I had just said, I would like some yogurt, but I would like some bits in it that I don't have, she would have said, I've got some bits. And then we both would have enjoyed yogurt.
And like, this was also a neat moment for me. I didn't realize, of course, all that was going on for you because you didn't say it out loud at the time. But it makes me realize an old pattern that I would have had, which was like, would you like some yogurt? And you would say no. And I would be, but like, are you sure? Because I also have raspberries and I could have this. And would you like it with this? And like, we could also do this. And my old pattern would have been like, try to sell you on it. Like, make sure, are you sure you're okay not having it? Because I'm going to have it. And my new thing is, hey, if it's a no, it's a no.
Yeah.
I don't need to work any harder than that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah.
It was great. Breaking patterns left and right.
Yeah.
So the next thing that came up, we've gotten in the habit of using ChatGPT for a whole bunch of question answering things. And I call it my boyfriend, ChatGPT, my boyfriend.
I make it make funny, cute pictures for me.
Yeah, we do all sorts of silly things with our ChatGPTs. But so you very quickly get to the end of the amount of questions you can ask in a day, and then you have to wait to reset it. And I didn't know much about it, right? I knew what I had heard on the Lex Friedman podcast from some like AI expert who pays for the pro something version that's $200 a month, or it was free in my mind. This is the limited information that I had and was running with. And G's like, oh, I'm thinking of I'm ordering it so I can ask it more questions. And I'm thinking like, wow, like, do you ask it that many questions for like $200 a month? Does that make sense? Like, well, she must be using it for other things that I don't know about. That makes sense. And then it got to a point where we're doing all this work that we need to be able to ask more questions. And she's like, well, should I just buy it? I'm like, well, I don't want it. She's like, we should both buy it. And I'm like, I don't want to pay $200 a month. She's like, well, no, it's like $20 a month. And I was like, oh yeah, let's get it right now. Of course. And if I hadn't said that out loud, we would never have known. And there was this slight disconnect, right? Where I'm like resisting. She's suggesting, offering, I'm resisting. Why? Because I thought it was 10 times more expensive than it actually was.
So it's like, it's the power of putting the information out in the space between you and somebody else.
Yes.
Right? Instead of keeping it inside, and we often swirl with the information inside or whatever. And I have an example of that where I can sense myself starting to try really hard to figure things out on my own, which is my old protective pattern. Figure everything out on your own. And when I get that feeling in my head and my body now, I know, like I might say to my partner, so I'm thinking this, I could do it this way, or I could do it this way. And then if I did it this way, then this, like, what do you think? And I'm like, hallelujah. And he might say, I think this way will be easier, or this way might feel nicer.
Yeah.
The other day, I'm trying to figure out like a not super expensive way of not having the flies fly in, the mosquitoes fly in the windows. And of course, you could get like custom window screens and things, but I don't really feel like the space needs that kind of investment. I just want for like a month or something that things don't fly in. And I had texted him, like, I wonder if I could just buy a roll of that kind of fabric that goes over your screen and like gorilla tape it right at the top. That's all. It just narrated my thoughts. He's like, well, it won't keep the flies out, the bugs out, but you could do it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I thought about it some more. I'm like, oh, I guess the wind will blow it and things will still fly in, whatever. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But that was just a moment of surprise of saying something out loud, just throwing an idea out there, and then you get this helpful information or this information that makes you reflect on it a little bit more and realize, yeah, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
But had I not done that, then I just sit with it and stew with it, and I think some more and I research some more. Life doesn't have to be so hard that we are our own sounding board all the time.
It's true. And that I know what you mean, that feeling now. There is a physical sensation of limitation that I can recognize in my body. Like either I don't have enough information or I don't have the tools or something. And so there's this sense of like slightly roiling, a little bit frustrated, feeling like I can't address whatever the thing is that I need. And what a
Mm-hmm.
magnificent time to say the thing out loud and then see what
Yes.
happens.
Yes. There's a little sort of side note about the power of saying things out loud. And maybe after I share this, we can sort of differentiate between your first example and this one, which is something we used to do. And we still do when we facilitate groups, is to empty the bucket, right? Which is just a timer set between two people or a group of people where one person speaks at a time. And the prompt is something that I want you to know is, and you just say anything. And you keep using that prompt and say the next thing. And it could be as light and surface as what you ate for breakfast, but it could also be something I want you to know is I'm worried about how I'm going to pay my bills this month, right? Or something I want you to know is I'm really excited for this job that I might get, but I don't know if I'm going to get it. And what struck me after experiencing emptying the bucket, like doing it, participating in it, is how much lighter and clearer I felt in my life. Even though we didn't come to any new decisions, we didn't change anything about my life, nobody solved any of my problems, but there's something about speaking the stuff that swirls inside out loud for someone to witness you in that, and they're not judging you. And the point of this practice actually isn't that anyone gives you feedback. People are just listening to you. They say nothing to you in response to that, which is a bit weird to begin with. But actually, when people do it, they're like, it actually felt so nice to just say the things on my mind, and no one's trying to problem solve it for me. No one's trying to convince me that it's not a big deal. No one's riling me up some more because they're adding their own stress to the situation. And it really highlights the importance of just saying stuff out loud, being witnessed in what your current reality is in your mind and in your body. And I've been asked recently, well, what's the point of talking about things that you can't do anything about? And I feel like that is the point. If you've ever experienced it in your body, what it feels like to just say what's been on your mind or what you're up to out loud and have someone witness it, that feeling is the point.
Yes.
To feel, a little bit less, a little bit lighter, a little bit more connected to people, a little bit more in your own experience, a little bit more clear.
Yeah. And there is some magic there about in that container, there's no response. We know nobody's trying to solve our problems. We know nobody's going to respond. So there's this liberating element to it that can be change. If you're needing something from someone, if you need someone to do something about it, that's a different energy, right? And there's a superstition that I want to address here, which is that naming something can create it or give it energy. The idea that, I don't want to give voice to all these things in my head because I don't want to make them real. I don't want to give energy to them. But there's a deeper truth there that if something is in your head, it has your energy. Thinking something and not saying out loud doesn't make the thing go away. It just keeps it this low level irritation within you and this freedom feeling. Yeah, what you're describing. So I don't want people to think that like there's a difference between ruminating and going on and never letting this thing go, or just releasing it and seeing what comes back.
Yes. And I want to add that I've noticed in my life, because when we were participating in women's groups or when we were facilitating, there was a pre-structured plan weekly where we knew we would have this outlet, this way of just releasing what's been on our minds and in our bodies for the last week. And what I notice not in that kind of setup anymore is I'm like, I need to create that more intentionally, right? So for those of you who do not have that kind of setup built into your life yet, or that may never be your thing, it's important to find be intentional about how that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Are you going to make it a habit to reach out and call a friend and say, hey, can I have 2 minutes or 5 minutes of your time? And can I just let you know thoughts that have been on my mind this week? And what I'm asking for is for you to just sit and listen and give no response. Are you cool with that? And build that into your life, because it will make a big difference.
Yeah. But do you remember how horrifying that seemed initially?
Oh, yes. Horrifying, because you're worried about sounding ridiculous, being judged. Like, why am I talking about this ridiculous thing? And are they going to judge me for like that I'm stirring with this in my mind? What if they think it's dumb? What if they, all the stuff, which I think is another gift of that practice, which every time we've done that practice with people, no matter how hesitant or skeptical or worried they were, everyone always said, I felt relieved after.
Yeah.
It felt really nice to change that old belief and worry that someone's judging me. I realize actually I have more in common with this person. Like we're human together, and I actually feel better about myself.
For sure. My experience initially was that I had nothing to say. There was nothing to say. And this is a pretty common experience. We'll set a timer for 2 minutes and people will be like, I have nothing to say. So if you've had the experience in your life of when you share news, you get a difficult response, or somebody trying to solve your problems or insert themselves, or they give you some response that feels emotionally unhelpful for you, you might have, like me, learned to not have anything to say. And without exception, you will develop something to say in a space where whatever you say is welcome and there's no response, there's no expectations. Pretty quickly, it gets up to like a 10-minute timer and people are like, oh my gosh, it's over already. From I have nothing to say, it's difficult to produce something to say, feels really impossible to do it for 2 minutes, till a 10-minute timer, feeling like that's good, looking forward to it, can't wait till next time.
Yes. And I remember, myself included, like not just that you have nothing to say, but being mortified at the idea of, you want me to talk about myself for 2 minutes and listen to my own voice?
How
That sounds
rude.
awful.
Yes.
Right. And I do recall all the times that people looked at us like we were nuts, and mortified and horrified that they had to sit through this 2 minutes. And then eventually being like, oh, I'm so excited for 10 minutes. That was 10 minutes already. I have tons to say. And that was also really like, to me, it feels like a magical moment when you have people who have always believed they have nothing to say. And they realize, actually, I have a lot to say. I have a lot of opinions. I have desires. I have wants. I have worries. There's a lot to me. And it's okay to speak up and use my voice and take up space. Right?
Yeah. It's okay. It's helpful. It's connecting. It's relieving. It's all of these really good things.
Mm-hmm. And it's also really helpful, I find, for people who are maybe on the other end of the spectrum, who find it very easy and comfortable to talk, and they talk and they talk and they talk. And it's not like they're trying to be rude, but it doesn't occur to them to pull back a little and make space for someone else to talk.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's this discomfort with silence, because I've been in that place before. You're uncomfortable with silence and the other people are not talking and the silence feels gross. So you're like, I better say some more. Whereas other people who are maybe not as used to talking and taking up space might feel that they need like explicit permission and invitation to say something. And even then they would feel uncomfortable. So it's a great way to practice both sides. Right? As someone who tends to talk a lot, learning how to sit and say nothing and listen and notice the things that the person says and what they trigger in you and the impulsive responses you want to throw in there, even feeling the energetic body pull of what it's like to want to say something and learning how to hold that energy. Those are really helpful skills to build. And when I work with couples, we play with this, and they think, oh, we're going to talk to Georgianna. We're going to talk about all the things we've been pissed off at each other about for a long time. We're going to resolve it all. And I show them, I'm like, yes, we will talk about those things, but that's certainly not happening in day one. We're practicing this. Can you listen to the other person say one sentence and keep your mouth shut? and feel what's happening in your body and notice if you're regulated and notice what you might need to do to regulate a little bit more. Can you notice when you hear them say one sentence, what judgments you make about yourself or them or your relationship or the situation? Like, that's what we're practicing. And eventually they're all like, wow, like that's really foundational stuff. Like, we can't even do this. How do we expect ourselves to be able to talk about something that's super emotionally charged for both of us? We have a history around talking about this topic. So it's really a foundational skill to build, to be able to say what's going on with you out loud and hear what's going on with someone and like just let it land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you can practice at home alone or at work or as you're going to the bathroom. Just say out loud every single thing that you're doing, everything that you're reaching for, everything that you need to get or do.
Yes, right. So, when you say I just narrate what's going on. So it might be right now I'm looking at my doll on the table. And right now I notice that I'm thirsty. And so I'm going to take a drink, right? Like that basic. And I started to do that. And I started to do that for many reasons. One, because I grew up sort of learning like your voice doesn't matter and shouldn't be heard. So I wasn't even used to hearing my own voice, right? Say non-emotionally charged things, like things that were not about an opinion that I had to stand up for or something I had to convince people about. Just, I'm walking to the kitchen. And so it helped to be able to hear my own voice, right? And then I changed it a little bit to talk about, a thought that I have right now is like, what's going to happen if like this thing doesn't work out? And so I'm learning to narrate my worries. And if you have been someone who's very good at ruminating, this will be really great to practice. Is typically we ruminate, we don't say it out loud. We're saying it in our mind. And if you're a good ruminator, you can ruminate for hours and days on end about the same kind of stuff over and over again. But I guarantee, I'm pretty certain, I've never tried this in an experiment, but if I said you can ruminate, but it must be out loud and you can do it for as long as you want, I really don't think we're going to be doing that for 2 hours. Like at some point you're going to be like, this is boring. I'm done with it. Right. So that's also how you help shift out of rumination, not by forcing and withholding it, but like it just naturally is finished because you're sort of done saying that stuff out loud. And then there was a version of saying stuff out loud, which was what feels good right now is what doesn't feel good. What I'm liking right now, what I'm not liking right now. What something I prefer is, right? Because I didn't know that it was okay to have my own preferences, my own feelings, my own needs, and my own wants. And I'm like, well, it's great when people say, oh, speak up, set a boundary, ask people for what you need. I'm like, I don't even know how to say that out loud to myself in my own room by myself. What's the likelihood I'm going to say that with someone who I really like or care about and I'm worried that they're going to like ditch me the second I speak up? But then we expect ourselves to be able to do that.
Sure do.
That might be a bit of a leap that's too big in that moment. But that's okay. You can build up to that.
Yeah, totally. It's so good. Anything else you want to say about this before we do closing?
I like to narrate my like critical and pissed off with people voice.
Yes.
Because I think it's really important to realize like, crap, like I'm really generating a lot of like unnecessary angry energy right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying feeling angry is unnecessary, but I'm saying when you report those thoughts out loud, it's easier to get to what the core is that's bothering you. So you can use that and do something with it. But often I'll just like mumble to myself or be resentful or whatever. And like, what good is that to keep stirring that up, but not do anything useful with that energy?
Totally. That's a good example for where we take something's energy away. So either by naming things, you can either create them or reduce them to nothing, right? So I'm thinking of the muttering, like the vibe that goes with, I've got this irritating thing. I'm so irritated. I'm not going to say it out loud. And if I pressed you to say, what is the thing you're mad about? And now you have to, in your full voice, be like, well, I didn't like that you didn't give me grains for my yogurt. It just gets reduced to something sort of silly. It contextualizes it in a different way.
Right? Yes. Like another one that I like. And so you could play with what you have discovered patterns that are not super helpful. Like for me, a helpful thing to narrate is right now, I want to blame you for.
Ooh, yeah.
Right. Or right now, I want to take the blame for.
Yeah.
Right. Or I'm inclined to take the blame for, because I have both of those.
Yeah.
Like strongly and out of proportion and all mixed up sometimes, because I was never really taught like what is your responsibility and what is not your responsibility, right? So I'm taking responsibility for certain things that are totally not mine. And then I'm also shifting responsibility for some things that are mine. I find it really helpful and eventually also quite humorous to just name that happening out loud in real time.
Yeah. I like to do that sort of naming in accents with a very large, very accusatory voice. How dare you not produce grains for my yogurt? How dare. Just
Yes.
makes it easier all around.
Yes. So I think that that's a really fun one to play with. That was mortifying for me before, because being silly was wrong and bad, right? So that was another reason to actually try that out and try narrating in funny, silly voices and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you go ahead.
I was just thinking of little baby Ray when she wants to take me to her room to show me blocks. She walks like this down the hallway. Like, that seems like a more fun to walk down the hallway.
Yes,
So easy
right?
to add
With
in
the
some
elbows
delight.
up.
Yeah.
Easy to add in some delight, right?
Yeah.
I like that. It's easy to add in some delight.
Yeah.
And I think that especially when times are hard, that's when delight has such a even higher return on investment,
Yeah.
right? Like hard things are going to happen for all of us. Like, can you sprinkle in a little bit of delight, right? To make the hard thing a little bit easier. So yeah, little kids are great to watch because they, before they're conditioned by us to shut that all down, they're actually quite, they know how to add in delight.
And they know how to narrate.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I have found in my experience of narrating with friends how it brings us closer. Because I think many of us have been conditioned to show only certain sides of us. Right. And when you start narrating, it's like almost saying, I'm learning that all parts of me are welcome and allowed and not bad. And I'm just going to narrate it. It doesn't mean anything. I remember our teacher, Phil. Do you remember when he used to say, like, it would be claiming things like, I'm a jealous person. And I remember for me, and I think other people, they're like, well, it's only sometimes that I'm jealous. And he's like, just try it on. Just say, I'm a jealous person. Just own that is part of you. And it felt yucky to do at first because I'm like, I don't want anyone to think I'm a jealous person. But over time, it was so liberating and freeing to be like, yes, I am jealous. Not always, sometimes. But that term and that label doesn't hold a charge for me anymore because I have integrated and accepted that sometimes I do feel jealous and it doesn't make me a bad person and I don't need to be ashamed of that. Right. So narrating our thoughts, narrating what's going on and learning that if you're with the right people, they're not going to hold that against you. They're actually going to be pleased and probably relieved that they can be human with you, right? And that they get to see a little bit more of your realness.
Yeah.
And that feels safe for people. Like people who really want you for who you are, getting to see more sides of you, I think it helps people feel safer with you.
It does, for sure. You just made me think of the qualifications that we make. I'm jealous, but not in X, Y, and Z circumstances, and not always. It's a symptom of this. It's a fear of disconnection. It's a fear of connection not being initially made. It's like we need to express all of ourselves in every moment in order to be and feel valued. I can't let you see just this part of me because I think you're going to judge me. So I need you to see me describing every other part of me. And hope that you still like me at the end. There's a real lot of fear and I think a fractured self hidden underneath that.
Mm-hmm. It's like this, I don't trust that you'll be able to see my wholeness if I don't put it on display for you completely right now, right? And also, I assume that if you only see a part of me, you're going to judge me for the other parts appear to be lacking in this moment.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So can you see how being able to take these pauses with ourselves and express ourselves in ways that are true at the moment, but don't encompass every single thing about us, how helpful that is with pacing when you're dating, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to hold the unknown. I don't know what they know about me. I don't know if they like this or that.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're thinking right now. Being
Mm-hmm.
able to grow your capacity to be with that is
Yes.
also a huge gift.
So this reminds me of, I think we should do a separate episode about pacing and dating and get to know people and things like that. But it reminds me of, I guess this happened a lot in dating, is where you feel like in the name of transparency and vulnerability, I need to now tell somebody from the very beginning everything about me and every trauma I've experienced and all the stuff. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not judging that. I've been there before. And I know the place for me where it came from. And part of it came from, believing that this is what vulnerability is and transparency is and authenticity is, but also from a fear-based place of, I better tell you all the icky parts of me and check to see if you're going to run right away.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to run, I'd rather you run now, kind of thing. And practicing and learning to like navigate this space where there's discernment of like, how do I present myself as open and transparent where it fits what phase we're at in terms of who we are to each other. Like if you're a stranger, like it's not fitting for me to tell you everything about my life. But if you're a stranger, I've decided, hey, I want to get to know you a little bit more. I could say, yeah, I've gone through some challenging things in life and feeling pretty good right now. That's a truth. But at the time, I didn't know that I could end the sentence there. I was like, well, if I'm going to tell you what I've gone through, I've got to tell you everything. Right. And if you don't tell me everything, then you must be hiding something. And so really playing and learning how much to share and when and what to share and when. And I find that a lot of that you don't really know until you try out some different things and see how they feel.
And so what a better position to be in. Say you're dating, you're trying not to overshare, you're trying to avoid a trauma bond, and you've gotten into the practice of narrating what's going on for you. Suddenly you're able to connect with this person on a really presence-based level of what's happening and what's here right now. They can get to know you, they can see how you're like working things out and how they can help. That feels like an excellent way if you're tending to overshare. That's a great safe way to share a lot without going too deep, too personal, too fast.
Yes. And like then there's the opposite side, right? There always are like, there's the duality is some people are like, I learned to protect myself by sharing nothing or nothing of depth, right? And so if you see that in yourself and you feel like that's a pattern you're willing to experiment with a little bit, maybe you want to share a little bit more, even if it's to say, hey, I'm like questioning what to share with you right now because my old pattern would be to share nothing.
That's great.
And I'd like to shift that a little bit.
Right? Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's this is an exercise that when we do this in our programs, people can get stymied, right? They don't know that they have anything to say. So it's perfectly reasonable to say, I don't have anything to say right now. I'm noticing that I don't have anything to say. Something I want you to know is I can't produce any words right now. And just keep going.
Yes. Right. And it could be something I want you to know is I can't produce any words right now. I don't know what to say. And I'm noticing I'm judging myself for that.
Amazing.
Right. Or I have nothing to say and my mind's sort of gone blank and I'm actually thinking about when I can get the hell out of here because it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Imagine if we like all just communicated that openly and clearly with each other instead of pretending that I'm having a great time here when I'm really thinking about like when's the first second I can like take off.
Yeah. That would be heaven for me, I tell you. And, I mentioned earlier, like not giving voice to something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And there's going to be a lot of people around you who are like sensory people who can feel that there's something unsaid. And that's just like an optional discomfort.
Yeah. You're talking about something I've heard it called like spoken about in this way. Naming what's in the space between you and the other person. Because like you said, it's there. Whether you name it and you acknowledge it or not energetically, you feel it. Often they notice something, and it just creates, I'm going to say again, more of a sense of safety when we can just name. Even if you don't want to get into the details of naming, hey, there's some awkward energy right now in this space between us. Like, I don't know exactly what it is, or it might be, I don't think I'm ready to really talk about it yet, but I just want to acknowledge it's here. And I've done that with people where like there's something rubbing each of us the wrong way, and we're probably too guarded and defended, and maybe it's not the right time to talk about it, but just to call it out and name it for what it is without making it wrong or either of us wrong. Hey, there's something weird in this energy right now. Now's not the time to get into it, but I just want to name it. It's there. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, not just it creates safety, but like this, like that breath gets to come, because both people are like, yeah, I felt that thing's there.
Yeah.
Right. It reminds me of, I don't know if men do this, but I definitely know women do this. When you're asked, what's wrong? Nothing.
I'm fine.
Nothing. I'm fine. Whatever. Someone's often asking that because they feel something is in between, in the space in between you. When we say nothing, I don't think it builds trust. I think it actually erodes trust, because the other person's obvious, like there's obviously something.
Yeah.
Right. It would be different to say, there is something and I'm not ready to talk about it yet. Or there is something and it overwhelms me completely. I need some space. Right. But to pretend like there's nothing when there is something.
Yeah.
Right. Or even to be able to say, I can't even name what it is, but I get what you're talking about. There's something here. Right? And the other person would be like, okay, I'm not nuts. Like there is something here. We can't resolve it now, but we will figure it out. That's relieving to people.
It is. Yes, it is. I hope it can end there. Like, well, what if it's an anxious person you're saying that to? They're going to have a lot more questions.
Well, that anxious person was me before, because I was like, well, now that there's something we have to talk about, we have to talk about it until it's 3 a.m. And even when it's 3 a.m., we should still keep talking about it. And that was a muscle I had to grow, which is, can I be with the discomfort of knowing there's something here and we're not resolving it right now? Right.
And that can I grow the muscle to be with the other person's discomfort? You know, if I'm in a space of wanting to be honest and open and name that something's here, I have to be able to hold all of those feelings for myself. I might have to be able to hold the other person's response too. So it's another one of those instances where I really need to know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, to hold the line.
And to go into it knowing practicing these things isn't going to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But probably the way you're living life and how your relationships are going also doesn't feel super comfortable. Yeah. So it's like, which kind of discomfort are you going to choose, and what is it in service of?
Yeah, I really do actually think that we all are like allotted, I'm going to say, a pool of discomfort, a pool of anxiety, and we just divvy them up in different ways. So you can have this low level discomfort of never naming the thing, and that will just last forever. That's, you get one contract, there's the low level discomfort forever. Mm-hmm. Or you can have maybe a higher level of discomfort temporarily, followed by some peace. Hey,
I didn't know that was on offer. I didn't know that was possible.
Right? It would be scary to sign that one because I know the low level constant. I know I can survive that. The big, I've got to grow some muscles and gain some tools to be with the larger, scarier thing. But I know what waits on the other side is super worth it.
Well, you know now, but did you know before?
I didn't believe it. I actively didn't believe it, but I could see that I didn't have the whole picture, and I trusted people. Is that even right? Did I trust people? I could see they had something I didn't, and I wanted it.
Yeah, well, that was enough. Leaning into that was enough to be open and give it a try. Yeah.
And I was skeptical and not very kind the whole time, and it still worked.
Nice. I'm trying to see if there was something else I wanted to say about naming things and parts. Okay. What I'm thinking of is an old experience I used to have. This is about worrying that if I don't show you all of me right in this moment, you're not going to see me, or you're going to see me in a way that I don't want you to see me, or you're not really going to get me, which is the situation would be, I would feel like if I knew something, I have to tell you every part of it that I know. There's no taking into account timing or context or whether it's necessary, or where is this desire and need coming from within me? Is this like a grounded feeling of, I think it's important to share this, or this fear-based place of, I better show them everything I know about this right in this moment, because otherwise they're going to assume I'm stupid and I don't know. And then they're going to judge me for that. And then they're going to not want to be around. So I made it a thing for me to practice noticing that pull in me that wanted to say more, and just practice like leaning back and sitting and feeling my butt and be like, it doesn't need to be said right now. Right. So I've had opposite things to practice. I've had a pattern of holding back and not saying the thing. So many times in my life, I've been in auditoriums, conferences, things, meetings where I want to say this thing or I want to ask this thing. And then I convince myself it's dumb and stupid and I shouldn't. And then like right away, someone else says it or something similar. And then I get this yucky feeling of, why didn't I say the thing? Whatever. And I've had to learn that when that feeling comes to like pull it back, to lean forward a bit and say the thing. But I've also been in situations where I feel this need to add more and more to the conversation, to the moment, because I'm afraid of what might happen if I don't say all the things. And in those instances, I've had to practice leaning back and sitting and just checking with my body and my breath and reminding myself, like, this is probably not something that must be said right now. This would be a good time to practice being with that yucky feeling of feeling the need and want to say the thing and just holding it. So we're human. We're going to have different things, different patterns that feel more comfortable, different things we've done out of protection. And this is all about noticing what you tend to do in different scenarios and playing with it, playing with the opposite a little bit.
Thanks, Gigi. Well, okay, so I'm sitting in my chair. I'm twisting side to side. I'm aware that I'll have to use the washroom soon, and we've got a call in 20 minutes, and there's an itch on my thigh. That is the entirety of my reporting in this moment.
Nice. What was that like to just say the things out loud?
Good. I like it.
Great. Yeah.
Have you got a connection practice in mind to close us off?
I just want to shake things out.
Shake, shake, shake.
You
Shake,
can
shake,
see
shake. Shake your
shake your
booty.
body. What is this from? Why do I know this? Is it Sesame Street? No.
It's the song everybody knows. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your booty. Shake your booty. I don't know what it is.
I don't know why I thought it was from Sesame Street, but anyway.
Maybe that sounds very modern, Sesame Street.
I haven't watched Sesame Street in a long time. But I want to report a noticing that I have, which is I feel still a little warm, but way better than I did at the beginning. So I'm really glad that I took that moment to visualize laying on the beach or in the sauna. And I was also feeling so lethargic, like as we were coming on to record, that I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know what I have to say. And I told you that. I'm like, I don't know if the brain is working. I don't know if I have anything to say. And it felt very relieving to say that, because I do remember thinking, do I say this to Steph? Like, it's not going to change anything. But I also, this is what I noticed. I'm like, if I don't say anything to her, and this is actually quite sweet. If I don't say anything to her, it means I have to sit with it by myself the whole time. And if I say something to her, at least she knows now too. Like, there was something pleasant about, at least she knows now. It doesn't have this energy of, ugh, this is what's going on with me and nobody knows. There's a feel to that, right?
I get to be with you and your feeling instead of there just being a bit of a drift. That's nice.
And also, I'm narrating that there's a sense of like, what is it? I don't know if it's pride or happiness of like, I debated. I'm like, should I just tell Steph I don't want to record? And I could have. and it would have been fine. But there was also this other part that was like, just try it and see. And if it really doesn't feel good, then say something and you don't have to record. And it's neat to notice the difference between pushing through, which is my old way, or just assuming I don't want to and just calling it off. And the willingness to be like, let's try. Let's just try and see. And I can always, if I get new information at the time, or if the information becomes even clearer, I can present that information and we can work with that information. And I think what it's helped me with is to shift away from this old way of being, which was me, which was about feeling like I always had to make the right decision. And there was only one right answer. And I would need to rack my mind to try to figure out what the right answer was.
Yeah.
And so there's a sense of, oh, neat, look at that. I'm not in that place anymore. There's nuance to this.
Well, and there's also boundaries and self-awareness. Like you're describing feeling like you have the resources to both do the thing that you're not sure will feel good right now, to call it off if necessary. So to notice in your body if the yes or the maybe becomes a no, and to be able to do something about that. That's like a lot of good pausing and being with and growing all the muscles you need to do all of those things. I mean, that's an enormous feat, and I feel proud of you and happy.
Yeah, right? I remember a time, because my old pattern is you say you're going to do something, you follow through no matter what, unless you're dying.
Yeah.
And so for me to learn to have reparative experiences where I created opportunities to experience that it's okay to change my mind, right? To be able to say, hey, okay, let's record. And then in me, it felt easier to say, let's record, because I have grown that muscle, that knowing that there's another door open to me, which is you're allowed to change your mind. If all of a sudden at some point you feel really awful and it's just not in it, and you don't even have to feel really awful to change your mind.
I have to
You're
say
allowed
something.
to change your mind.
This, I know, I'm sure I've done this. I know so many women have done this. It's easier to just have sex with them than to say no or end the thing or whatever it is. Like, could we highlight why it's so important to practice these things with little stuff that doesn't matter?
Yes. Right? This is the whole topic of like consent and being allowed to change your mind.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't feel like you can change your mind, you don't have permission to change your mind, it's not okay to disappoint someone. Right?
Yeah.
It's not okay to tell someone something and then change direction on things that are small or relatively small and don't trigger up too much emotion. What's the likelihood in something that's more emotionally charged, more intimate, that you're going to feel that it's okay to change your mind, right? And this is not about like, you're always allowed to change your mind, especially when it comes to sex and intimacy and consent and all that. But this is about saying like, let's grow that muscle for ourselves in all the areas of our lives. Let's grow that muscle in areas that are easier to grow so that it makes it accessible and available to us in these other moments where we're maybe more afraid to say no or to change your mind.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny. We feel like we can't say, no, I no longer want this peanut butter sandwich, but we expect ourselves to be able to establish firm boundaries in all these really important instances that are much more charged.
Right? Like now they've made me the sandwich and I took a bite and like, now I'm wasting the sandwich. Like how much, I don't know if this is a guy thing, but I definitely think that it happens for women.
For
like
sure.
How many times have you eaten the thing that you don't want to eat actually?
Totally.
Because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings or you don't want to waste it.
I've heard women be like, oh, like I'm just having a little bit of an allergic reaction. Like it's fine. It's just a little itchy. It's pretty wild, the lengths that we'll go to and the lengths that we will not. But yeah, you can practice these things in tiny ways and have huge repercussions.
And like we're having little giggles about this, but this is not about shaming or blaming or judging ourselves. Like I've been there. It's human. It's about, can I practice growing the muscle to notice when these moments are happening with a little bit more lightness and self-compassion and self-acceptance, right? I could still eat that peanut butter sandwich if I wanted to, but it's about noticing, oh, I'm starting to eat this sandwich because I feel like I have to or I should, and I don't want to hurt their feelings or waste their food.
Yeah. And those are all great things to narrate, you know? You could just get all weird about the sandwich, or you could be like, hey, I'm noticing that I kind of don't want this anymore, and I feel bad because you went to the trouble of making it for me, and like, I don't want you to think that I don't like it or like you. I just have changed my mind about the sandwich.
I think many people would be like, oh my gosh, don't eat the sandwich, just leave the sandwich.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
I mean, not everybody. I remember like there probably would have been a time with like parents or whatever that eat the freaking sandwich. I made that sandwich for you. That sandwich costs money to make. And I get
That's
that.
right.
I am a mother. I do get that. But I think it's important that we start noticing why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Thanks, Gigi.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got to go. So
We gotta
I'm
go.
cutting it off. Thank you guys for being here with us. I hope you narrate your experience today and that it helps you a lot. Please do like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.